Welcome to Chronicles by Candlelight. You are listening to Fracture, where a gifted young tech wizard leaves his small town for a prestigious magic institute, hiding his acceptance into a deadly assassin track while secretly training to become a skilled fighter. If this is your first time here, please subscribe and click the bell button for notifications. New episodes drop every Saturday. Episode 1. Someone slammed a classroom door, and the echo bounced through the walls. The air carried the subtle tang of perfume and teenage angst. I lay back in my chair, letting the hum of the fluorescent lights wash over me, and counted down the minutes until the day ended. Senior prank day had arrived, and the school had transformed into a war zone of confetti, toilet paper, rogue whoopee cushions, and the odd rebel using their powers without supervision. It was chaos. Harmless chaos, but chaos nonetheless. From my corner, near the back of the room, I could hear every little disruption. A pencil rolled across the floor, and I heard it. Same as with muffled thumps and fallen chairs. Teachers remained in the staff room, avoiding class and students altogether. They too weren't fans of today. I rested my head on the table, and my fingers traced the edges of my Justice League comic book. Just a few more hours, I reminded myself between yawns. A sudden splash all over jolted me upright before I even registered it. Cold water dripped down my hair, running along the scar across my nose and stinging my eyes. What the hell? I blinked and tried to clear the blur of water against my glasses. Finally, regaining my vision, I saw two of the biggest idiots on God's green earth laughing in front of me, Oz Knox and Theo Banks. "Cool enough, Snow?" Oz asked, his black hair plastered to his forehead. He was one ugly bastard, with teeth fucked up enough you could rent parking spaces between them. I pulled on the wrinkles near my eyes. What a drag, I muttered under my breath. "Don't like it, Snow?" Theo asked, and put a hand on my shoulder. "Should have stayed home today." He was just one of the red-haired sidekicks. Him and his good-for-nothing brother followed Oz around like lapdogs waiting for a command from their owner. Together they formed the Three Stooges. Oz threw his turgid frame around, knocking my half-soaked comic book to the ground, while Theo's bug eyes scanned the classroom like some kind of human antenna. The water soaked through my black dickies and sweater, and I could already feel the cold creep into my skin. My hands curled into fists as I felt anger surge. I had the mind to knock one of Oz's teeth loose, except it would actually make him look better. Instead, I opted to get out of their way. I wasn't in the mood to get into a fight on my last day. As I moved to one side, Oz stepped closer and cut my path. Theo shifted too, cutting off my other path, and sniggered beside him. "Look, T, Snow's angry." Oz laughed. "Why don't you do something about it?" "Yeah, do something," Theo added like a backup singer in a choir. "Go on." Oz pushed me back. "Oh, I forgot. Your powers are only good for computer games." He put a hand on my shoulder and clamped down, activating his super strength in a bid to threaten me. "This is real power, Snow," he added. I pulled my shoulder away, reassessing my options. As things stood, they had the upper hand if it remained 2 against 1. And they were right. Compared to Oz's super strength and Theo's electricity ability, my power, Fracture, wasn't going to cut it. I scanned the room for a weapon to use and defend myself, at the same time noted the nearest exits and looked for a potential distraction. To get to the single exit in the classroom, I had to go through them. I came up with a bright idea as I caught the sight of my backpack on the table. I was only going to get one chance to do it, but shoving my bag in Ors's face would distract him long enough for me to run for the door. Unlike Ors, Theo was skinny, relenting, and easier to knock to the floor. "It's a good thing it's the last day," I said, bidding my time and slowly reaching for my bag. "I'll never see your ugly mugs ever again. And even if I do, you'll probably be fixing toilet leaks at my company." Orz's face twisted red and hot, veins standing out at his neck as he lunged forward. "I'm going to kill you, dumbass," he growled. The words vibrated through the air like a low drum beat. Here was my chance. I shoved my bag in his face. Theo stepped in to help, but I shot my shoulder straight to his nose, and a gap opened up that I jumped through and ran towards the door. But just as I reached the handle, it burst open and a group of my overly excited classmates came in. "Hey, you guys, what?" I ran straight into the first guy I saw, who was knocked into the others. "God damn it," the guy behind him roared. "Watch where you are going." "Grab that bastard," Oz yelled. "With pleasure," the skinny kid I knocked back, Ed, said, and grabbed me by my right arm. His buddy grabbed my left arm, and they both pinned me to the wall. "It was a mistake," I yelled as my blood boiled with annoyance. "Too late for sorries now," Ed smirked. Theo laughed as he approached me. Behind him, Oz charged my way. His face was as red as a tomato as he rolled up his sleeves. "Get out of the way," He pushed Theo to the side. I'm going to kill him. My eyes darted from Oz to Theo to the growing crowd that had started to gather. They could smell a fight. A dozen or more students rushed into the room. Some were craning their necks from behind chairs, and others peeked from behind the doorway. The class echoed with murmurs and suppressed laughter. I braced myself as Oz gripped my collar. The sound of the fabric around my neckline ripping echoed as all the other students fell into silence, anticipating a brutal outcome. Then, a crackling burst of sound hit the room, slicing through the tension like a knife. The school's PA system sparked, and suddenly a warped voice boomed through the speakers, twisting through static. Yo, students of Elder High, this is your friendly fire starter, Coulson, the voice said. And I've taken over the system. And for my first declaration, it's time to party. Music pumped through the entire school system. The sound of a heavy bass line vibrated through the floor, rattling the lockers and shaking pencils off desks. Cheers erupted from the crowd as students rushed out of the door with fists and phones raised. Orr's grip faltered slightly, while Theo's eyes widened as he reacted to the sound of his twin brother on the broadcast. Coulson hijacked the radio waves with his EMT power, he cheered. Come on, Oz, we can't miss this. No, not until I kill him, Oz said, and tightened his grip on my sweater. There's no time, Theo said. Teachers are no doubt going to try and shut it down. I'll ask him where he is. Come on. Oz swore under his breath, glancing at Theo. I'll get you later, Snow, Oz shouted and stepped back. Frustration was clear in every movement. We'll meet again. Then they were both gone. Doubted. I pushed myself off the wall and adjusted my sweater. If not for the momentary distraction, I would probably have been knocked out cold by now. I couldn't believe I was saying it, but Coulson saved my life. I yanked my backpack over one shoulder as my wet fabric clung to my arms and felt the chill crawl deeper into my bones now. I wanted dry. I needed dry. I got out of the class and headed for the toilets down the hall. My Timberlands squeaked faintly against the linoleum as I moved past my mates. Some students were still cheering for Coulson, moving toward the doors to get closer to the speakers, while others noticed my wet frame meander. I kept my head down, barely seeing through my fogged glasses. The hallway smelled like gym shoes, a mix of cleaning solution and perfume. I kicked a few stray pieces of paper and confetti scattered across the floor. Then, I stopped beside one of the lockers and wiped my glasses with the edge of my sleeve. It didn't do much in terms of helping, but I could squint through the blur. Then I spotted her. Andrea Small, the human equivalent of a sunbeam. She leaned casually against the bathroom wall and talked to her girlfriends. Her red hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders and caught the fluorescent light like fire. She wore one of her trademark green crop tops and blue jeans that somehow managed to look effortless while showing off curves I'd spent the better part of 2 years silently observing. I stopped in my tracks, cleared my throat and angled my body away, hoping to pass without her noticing me. Reagan? She called. I turned slowly, trying to appear casual. Yeah? I replied. Why are you soaking wet? She tilted her head as her green eyes sparkled with amusement. I forced a grin. Went for a swim, I said, and tried to make light of an embarrassing situation. You're so silly, Andrea laughed. The sound felt like sweet, sweet jazz to my ears. It even drew the attention of a few students passing by. She stepped closer, and I could smell the faint hint of lavender from her perfume. The mix of her scent was almost dizzying. So, what uni are you planning to go to? She asked, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Normal Solia University, I shrugged. I knew she hoped to get into the Aetherium Institute. It was a different league to Solia and deserving of a girl like her. Her eyes widened slightly. Like your mom? She gave me a small smile. I appreciated that she remembered, even after all this time. A little nod escaped me, but before I could say anything else, a tall and broad shadow fell over her. It was the boyfriend, Archie, or Achilles, as everyone called him. He was the most indestructible guy in school, and definitely Aetherium bound. He could properly tank a direct hit from one of the school buses and walk away unscathed. Even Oz respected him. The two of them exchanged a glance. Their chemistry was undeniable, but sickening. Then he leaned in and they kissed, right there in the hallway. I felt the irritation crawl up my neck as I choked back the words, "Get a room." I was rooted to the spot as my world spun slightly off axis. Archie finally pulled back, brushing a lock of hair from her face. A few of us are ditching school. You should come, he said. Before she could answer, he grabbed her hand and tugged her down the hall. She turned her head slightly and gave me a small, fleeting smile. Bye, Reagan, she said. She disappeared around the corner before I could even respond. The echo of her laughter mingled with the sounds of senior prank day chaos outside, and just like that, she was gone. I stared after her as the hallway suddenly felt colder and more empty than it had a second ago. My hands were still damp from wringing out my sweater. One day, I reminded myself, one day, I'd be the one setting the pace, deciding who followed and who didn't. The sound of footsteps approaching pulled me from my thoughts. A janitor wheeled a mop bucket past, muttering under his breath and cursing the chaos in his wake. The smell of bleach lingered in the air after him. I exhaled and rubbed my glasses again in front of the toilet door, then stepped into the sterile white tile room. The faint hum of water dripping mixed with the rustle from the ventilation system above, filling the quiet behind me. The smell of disinfectant was stronger here than in the hallway. I took my sweater off and wrung it in the sink. I looked into the mirror and met my dark blue eyes. Andrea's words lingered with the memory of her smile and cut through the annoyance caused by the two bullies, the wet clothing, and the chaos outside. Her question floated in my head. "What uni are you planning to go to?" she asked. "Solia," I had said. It was the answer everyone expected. I told myself it was about honoring my mum, about following the path she had taken before she met my dad. She had loved Solia and said it was steady and respectable. But as good as it sounded, Aetherium Institute was impossible to ignore. It was the place everyone talked about. Their graduates snapped up across the country before they even finished their final exams. They also promised guaranteed work placement at top firms, government contracts, private security outfits, and arcane engineering companies with more money than sense. I loved the idea of more money. My breath fogged the mirror for a second before fading. Was I a bad son for wanting to go to Aetherium, I wondered? My mum died believing in hard work and honest paths. My dad continued her dream and started his own company. But the hope of building something from nothing seemed so far now. The muffled beat of Coulson's PA system vibrated faintly through the toilet floors as I finished wringing out my sweater and hung them under the hand dryer. The machine roared to life, and the blast of warm air attempted to do something about the cold that had settled deep into my bones. But alas, the heat barely scratched the surface. "What a drag," I muttered. I pulled my sweater on. It wasn't any less wet. I rubbed my hands together, then held them back under the dryer, rotating them slowly. The air was lukewarm at best, and my fingers ran so cold that left unchecked, they'd turn blue. I hated that about myself. Still freezing, I dropped my hands from the dryer and gave up. "Useless machine, useless school," I muttered. I slung my backpack over my shoulder, pushed out of the bathroom, and blended back into the chaos. If everyone else was ditching, so was I. One last small rebellion before everything changed. The noise outside surged again, and laughter rolled through the halls like a wave. Senior prank day was in full swing, and nobody cared about attendance anymore. The front exits came into view, and sunlight poured through its glass transom windows and casted long reflections across the polished floor. I quickened my pace and was almost free when a familiar voice cut through the noise. "Reagan." I stopped. It sounded like Mr. Lorenzo. I turned to find him near the entrance, leaning against a pillar with a coffee cup in one hand and his messenger bag slung across his shoulder. He dressed like he never quite accepted that he was a teacher. He wore a goatee, always favored rolled-up sleeves, and never wore a tie. Cool by my standards. "Where are you off to?" He raised an eyebrow. I adjusted my backpack strap. I struggled for a good lie. "The bathroom run?" Mr. Lorenzo took a sip of his coffee, and his eyes never left mine. "Hope you're not skipping school." My mouth opened, then closed. Heat rushed to my face, and I felt stupid for it. Well, it's the last day, and..." I began. He held up a hand and stopped my rambling. "Relax." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I'm not here to ruin senior prank day, but skipping school isn't allowed." I exhaled slowly and dropped my shoulders. He glanced down at his bag, then back at me. "Tell you what," he said. "I've got an issue with my laptop. Thing's been acting up all week. If you can help me fix it, I'll pretend I didn't see you heading home." "You serious?" I asked. Mr. Lorenzo nodded. "Deal?" I didn't hesitate. "Deal." "To the staff room." He gestured and motioned for me to follow. He led me down a quieter corridor toward the staff room. The farther we moved from the main hall, the more the noise of senior prank day faded into a dull, distant roar. The smell shifted too, away from sweat and toward burnt coffee and old people. Inside the staff room, the lights were softer. A radiator hummed along the far wall, and its metal ticked faintly as it pushed out heat. Mr. Lorenzo crossed the room and grabbed a towel from a drawer, then tossed it my way. Sit, he said, and nodded toward a chair pulled up close to the radiator. I dropped my bag, took the towel, and sat. Heat soaked through my clothes almost immediately. I rubbed the towel through my hair and let the warmth creep into my fingers. You don't like the cold, Mr. Lorenzo said. I glanced up at him. How'd you know? I asked. He smiled. It's my duty to know all my students, he replied. Figures. I snorted. He set his laptop on the table in front of me and pulled out a chair across from mine. I'll allow you to use your powers outside class, he said. Just this once. I nodded, but technically it wasn't just this once. Mr. Lorenzo turned a blind eye more than a few times when people used their powers. It was what made him extra cool. Thanks, I said. Don't thank me yet. He waved it off and took a sip from his coffee mug. That thing's been a nightmare. I flipped the laptop open and watched the screen struggle through its startup process before freezing on a wall of error text. I leaned closer and scanned the lines. The problem announced itself almost immediately with cascading syntax errors, sloppy in places and more deliberate in others. Virus, I said. Thought so. Mr. Lorenzo sighed. I rested my forearms on the table, towel draped loosely around my shoulders, and focused. The room faded at the edges as the radiator's warmth grounded me. My power, fracture, clicked on, and pressure built up behind my eyes. The faint blue glow in my vision reflected back at me from the laptop screen. Lines of code turned into structured systems layered on systems. Red crosshair vector icons bloomed across the display and hovered over corrupted strings and misaligned logic gates likely to fail. The virus wasn't simple, not some script kiddie garbage. This thing had depth. Whoever wrote it knew what they were doing, which made my pulse pick up despite myself. I cracked my knuckles and started typing. Each keystroke mattered. My power didn't write code for me. It never had. It just showed me where things broke first, and I followed the crosshairs, isolated sections, and mapped out how the virus interacted with the operating system. This is clever, I muttered. That good, mister? Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. Annoyingly so, I said. Whoever made this virus is aggressive, see this? I pointed to a branching loop. If I pull that wrong, it rewrites itself. Subscribe for new episodes every Wednesday. See you next time.